Oh, wait. David. Oh, yeah. Let's come to order. First off, can I have a volunteer to read the invocation? All right, Luke.
May we, the student senate, have the wisdom, patience, and guidance to be responsible representatives. May we be fair in judgments, enlightened in our actions, enlightened in our discussions, ethical in our actions. Can I get a go, Ramos?
Go, Ramos.
Yeah.
Make it a roll call for comments.
Christina. Here. Cole.
Here.
Theo.
Here.
Ariel. Present. Meg. Here. Abby. Here. Justin. Carmen. Here. Raul. Luke.
Here.
Kyle.
Yeah.
Amber. Here. Zach.
Present.
Liana. Here. Pam.
Here.
Eric.
Here.
Lydia. Here. Allie.
Present.
Emmy. Here. Connie. Duncan.
Here.
Ika. Here. And Melanie. Here. Obasi.
Here. Okay, so to start us off, before we talk about the minutes, today's my mom's birthday, and I was wondering if I could take a video of you all saying "Happy Birthday, Debbie."
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Debbie, so I can send it to her.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, that was a lot.
Oh, right now. You got to
Do Debbie.
Okay.
You want us to sing?
I can try. Okay, wait.
Yeah, wait.
David, I'm not singing. How do you want to do? You just stand over there. Yeah, you can sing if you want. You want to sing?
Yeah, come on, let's see how it works.
Just sing. Come on, sing. Happy birthday, Debbie. Okay. Do like a 3, 2, 1. Do like a 3, 2, 1. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Happy birthday, Debbie! You raised a great kid.
Well, was that on the agenda? I should put it there.
We only approved the agenda.
With that,
My mom's thinking.
can I get a motion to approve the previous minutes?
Motion to approve the previous minutes.
Second.
Motion from, was that Duncan? Second from Meg. All in favor?
Hold on.
All opposed?
Well, I have some corrections to make.
Okay, so then you're opposed, right?
No,
Well, we're just going to do it this way, okay? Okay. So you have some corrections to make. Is that right?
Well, now we're in voting phase, and we have to go back.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So some corrections. I ask unanimous consent, Mr. Chair, for all the corrections that I put on the document that's in the drive right now to be accepted into the document.
Okay. Can we have an overview of what those?
Absolutely. So they're mostly corrections to like just some grammar things, and like so for each motion that was made, there was not necessarily a statement of whether or not that motion passed. So including that language in there is important. Also, on like motions like for the approval of the senators that we have accepted into the Senate, some of those didn't have actual motions and like adoptions of those motions written down. So it's important that that's part of the record.
Okay, thank you.
That I added.
Is there any objection to the revisions that Senator Meade just
Senator Meade
just suggested? Hearing none, we will move forward and accept those changes. Thank you very much. Having accepted those changes, can I get a motion to approve them?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Eric, second from Luke. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, now we're going to move on. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion from Eric, second from Cam. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We'll move forward with this agenda. Okay, first off, committee updates.
Hi, you guys. COIC here. Come join us this Saturday for Right Time Pickup. I believe if you missed the previous retreat, you will be joining us as well. It'll be at 10 a.m. and we'll meet between Benson and Swig right here. Super quick. It probably takes 20 minutes. And second thing, we're working on a Pulse UIC project. We're going to move in the direction of a state walk program and look into late night events and options. Hit us up if you're interested in collabing. That's it.
Very nice. I also think you might have one too many buttons. So.
Oh, you want me to lose another?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue.
David, he's looking good as it is.
A little deeper.
Make sure that's in the minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, so FOC, so I was put on an outdoor sound amplification policy committee, which basically polices how RSOs and organizations can use like speakers and when they can during events. So we're trying to change that and modify that so it can be used by all. Also, I don't know if you guys know, but there's an app called Rave. If you have like your SCU mobile app or whatever, there's a choice called Rave. So that allows you to send like anonymous texts to campus safety. So it's like if you're in the library and you like see, if you see someone and you might not feel safe and you don't really want to call campus safety, you can like send an anonymous tip, and they're trying to use that. So I'm going to get more information about that. I think Helen wants to continue with her BTA pilot program that she was trying to do a couple years ago and trying to recruit students to use it. And she's also going to be meeting with poli-sci professors to inquire about Africa-related courses. And we'll see where the faculty talent show goes.
Okay, so Emmy successfully completed her diversity and inclusion in Silicon Valley, which was an awesome event. If you went, it was stellar and super informative. So she'll give a slight debrief on how it went, and then Meg will give you guys a little bit more information about her Asg Buddy Mixer, and then Allie will talk about a new project that she's working on.
It went well. So we had people from Accenture, Adobe, and LinkedIn come in, talk like how they were growing up, and then navigating careers and open Q&A. All these people are really open to like wanting to do more stuff on campus. So if you guys like have ideas, like literally tell me, because they want to do this. One of the women from LinkedIn, she talked about like a Rock Your Profile session, which I think would be interesting for ASG, and then also expanding to like MCC and RRC. But yeah, the event went really well. So thank you for those who came.
So I sent out an email to everyone with the flyer that's on the screen right now attached. I don't know if you guys like read what I typed up, but basically you're responsible for going ahead and forwarding this flyer to your buddy and corresponding with them on like what time you're going to be there. And I promised them that they would be getting these invites within the next week. So if you haven't done that yet, please go ahead and do that and email your buddy.
Sorry.
Was that
Yeah. So I'm working with ASN again. So they ended up collaborating with me on the job with the Jesuits, and one of the things that they're working on coming in March is faith politics in the 2020 election is common ground possible, and it's going to be a large event in that they have a professor from LMU flying up here to talk, and Jane Curry is going to be giving a response, as well as there's going to be table discussions. So one of the things that I'm going to be helping them with is getting involvement from RSOs to go to the event, as well as potentially like helping with questions and moderators. And I was wondering like about maybe ASG members could possibly be moderators at that event. So.
Well done, Allie. That's right in line with your Senator at Large position. Okay. In the future, we're just going to keep these slides to one person talking about whole committee projects. Thanks.
All right, so SAC, our first ESO has been approved.
Woo!
We have another one that's going to go through the process, and we just can keep on giving funding. Do you want me to go into these?
We'll do it. Thanks. Okay. Is Caroline Banker here? Wonderful. Can we have you to the front of the room quickly? So, at this time, we are going to move on to the confirmation of Caroline Banker for Assistant Bronco News Producer. Is that right, Caroline?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is Cecilia here? Cecilia's not here? Okay, Caroline. Would you describe the position and introduce yourself and say why you're
I'm Caroline. The position is, sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Assistant Bronco news producer. So basically, I help like select the content for like the little news segments, and then help film, produce, and then edit it to be posted. And I am a communications and poli-sci double major, and I'm hoping to go into broadcast journalism. So that's why I was really excited about this position.
Questions for Caroline?
What experience do you have in this area, and like what possible projects do you want to do?
So my current experience is I work in the athletic department doing like the live stream for all athletic events and like help do filming and producing. And so I do like men and women's basketball games, volleyball games, and then water polo. You'll see me in like the little top nest, they call it, and just like filming and then help doing like graphics and stuff for the live stream. And then for upcoming projects, today I helped to work on the like digital access card promo video, so that one is definitely ongoing, and then also the cultural show videos.
Other questions for Caroline?
Do you have any specific goals for this position?
I guess my goal would be, for like a personal goal, to learn more about the behind the scenes of ASG and then work with the PR team to sort of like get out information and educate the student body. And then I guess the goal for the overall involvement is to just kind of help promote the videos more around campus and stuff, and just kind of get them more widespread.
Allie?
I was wondering, how did you find out about this?
Through Cecilia Fan's email. I saw the ad, but I just like was reading her weekly email, so I just emailed her.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, we're gonna cut off there. Caroline, can we have the room, please? Okay. Additional comments on Caroline?
She's great.
Fantastic.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this the position that we just?
Judith vacated.
Yeah, didn't Judith just have that position?
She had the position, we promoted her.
Yeah, yeah. So she's now the Bronco news producer,
Nice.
and our
Caroline.
friend Caroline will be working under Judith.
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? That being the case, can I get a
Motion
motion?
vote.
Motion from Eric, second from Meg. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, let's do a roll call vote. So, on the question of appointing Caroline Banker to Assistant Bronco News Producer, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
You just said roll call.
Yeah.
Voice vote?
Did you read
That
that?
hasn't been, sorry.
Oh, you just said
Oh, I meant voice vote. I meant voice vote. Thank you. Or can we let that stand? Okay. The question, the motion passes. Caroline will be appointed to Bronco News Producer. Let's welcome her back in. Caroline. Hey, come on back in. Okay.
I'm just going to confirm you.
Okay.
These are the bylaws. Please put your left hand on the bylaws of your right. I, please state your name,
I, Caroline Banker,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution and bylaws
to uphold the Constitution and bylaws
of the Associated Student Government at Santa Clara University.
of the Associated Student Government at Santa Clara University.
Congratulations.
Okay, moving right on, we have some RSO presentations. Best buddies, are you here?
And just to let all the RSOs who are presenting know, you have 3 minutes to present. I'll put my finger up when there's 1 minute remaining and wave when time's up. So whenever you're ready.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lucia Hodges.
Hi, I'm Grace Ornmeyer.
And we're here representing Best Buddies. So what is Best Buddies? Best Buddies is an international nonprofit organization that creates opportunities for peer friendship and leadership development for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Best Buddies with IDD are paired with a peer buddy in one-on-one friendships that promote inclusion and togetherness. So what would happen is a college student would get paired with a child with IDD, and we just do hold events with them.
Alright, so our mission statement is the Best Buddies Santa Clara University chapter will provide friendship, leadership roles, and activities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to stay connected with their community and engage in campus life with their peers. So basically what we're trying to do is get the people with IDD involved on campus. They'll be paired with a person and we'll hold events so they can stay communicated, stay in contact, and just basically live the campus life of college students.
Our advisors in connection to the national organization. So our registered student organization advisor is Lori Salazar. Our program manager is Kelsey Rowland. And as a chapter of Best Buddies International, our connections to organization include paying yearly dues, registering all volunteers with Best Buddies online, and attendance at the national annual conference. So our president, Kelsey Cavanaugh, will be attending the national conference for us.
So planned events, a match party after buddy pairing, so basically just when they get assigned with their person. Buddy picnic, movie night, ice cream Sunday social, painting, craft night, game night, Santa Clara sports games, so like going to the game together, and a karaoke social. So when you get paired with a buddy, you'll have one-on-one contact, you'll have their number and stuff, so you'll be able to contact them, and then we'll host these events once a month where we'll bring them all together and have these events.
And funding for many of these events will be mostly donation-based, but we'll get into funding on the next slide. Yes, so potential requests for funding. Our plans for internal fundraising, that's the main thing that we're going to plan on doing. But we also need money for food, utensils, supplies, games, and tickets to host these events.
So similar SU student organizations include Campbell Pals, which organizes activities for students with disabilities at a community center, Special Olympics, which is an athletic organization that provides training and activities for children and adults with IDD, and then College of Adaptive Arts, which organization volunteers teaching adults with IDD various art forms. So what ours would differ from these, you actually get paired with the person. So you get that one-on-one connection. It's not just going to an event, you get a close connection with someone with IDD and you're able to make friends with them.
Yeah, your time's up.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. So Kyle will collect questions from the senators and pass them along to you.
Okay.
Chill Club. Both you guys.
Hello everyone, I am Andrew Longwood.
And I'm Isaiah Youngblood, and we are co-presidents of the Chill Club. So our mission is to ease the stress of SCU students and through wholesome events that promote self-improvement and positivity. In other words, just getting SCU to chill a little bit.
Exactly, I couldn't have said it better myself. So we've got some interesting events in the works. Our signature event is Dance Free, which is kind of a meditation mass, like free movement, creative expression sort of get together. It really ties into our wholesome, feel good, chill vibration. And you want to touch on some of the other events?
Yeah, so we got dinner time, which is basically where we all get together and we make a bunch of food and we all eat together. We got skits and sketches, making some skits and sketches and performing. You'll notice that a lot of these events are really art-based and things like that and creative because actually the things that we create, things like acting, things like singing, things like dancing, are really good for de-stressing in a very positive way, as well as all of these things are social and are good in that when you're basically socializing helps with stress.
Our advisor is Lori, as you all know. And basically, as far as funds go, we just we figure we're a pretty independent group. We don't want to ask for too much, but maybe some food here and there.
So conflicts we might have are SCU Vibes Fun Club, the club that was just presented, But the thing is we don't really see these clubs as like necessarily conflicts. We see them as collaborations because, you know, we're just starting up, so we want to actually go and get with these clubs and perhaps, you know, do events with these. Just want that. Cool, sounds good.
Right, yeah, and some of the other clubs we're thinking of collaborating with are Active Minds, Mindfulness, Salsa Clara, and the Wellness Center in the Forge Garden too. I know Kat down in the Forge Garden, she's a good friend, she's wonderful. We'd love to collaborate with her, maybe get a movie screening out there or something. And I love the mission of, we love the mission of the Wellness Center too, and how they promote sobriety and wholesome vibrations, which is kind of what we're going for with the Chill Club. So yeah, that's some of the ideas we've had. Any last thoughts?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
And it's the one after that. This one. Yeah. There's only one slide. Okay. So next up, we have a presentation on the search for a Chief Diversity Officer from Ms. Shelley Arakawa. Okay. Thank you very much. You have the floor for 20 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. Thanks for having us. My name is Eva Blanco Macias. I'm actually Dean of Undergraduate Admission here at Santa Clara University. I've been here for 17 years, and it's really great to see you in this setting. But I want to, first of all, thanks for the time. And one of the reasons why we're here is because in this process, as you know, and you saw in the announcement from Father O'Brien, is that we're on this pathway to search for our next Chief Diversity Officer. That is a working title, and we are in the process of really hearing from the entire campus. And so in that email, and there was one that was followed up today because our committee finally met today, is that there's a survey. We're really trying to hear and get input from all parts of the campus community. And so Wick Kiefer, which is a search firm who we've hired to help us with that process, they're here today. Tomorrow they'll be here later on the 12th of February, where we'll also have open forums for students, faculty, and staff, and we really want that invitation to go wide. So again, we can bring in and hear everyone's perspectives, but they're here to meet with you today. We have, I know, a short amount of time, but we're hoping it'll be productive. So I'll pass it over to Shelley and Christine Pendleton. So again, we can have what we hope to hear your input and productive conversation. So thank you.
So my name is Shelley Arakawa. I'm a consultant with Kiefer. I'm actually based in Southern California. And this is my colleague.
Hi, Christine Pendleton, Senior Associate with Kiefer, based in Chicago.
And so the purpose today is really to get your feedback on some of these questions. And what we do with the information is we create a leadership profile that we use to market the position and to talk to candidates to get them interested. We also use the information when we do have those conversations with candidates to give them a little bit more detail about the context, about the climate, about the expectations for leadership. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Plenty. I mean, like, yeah. Well, I think this is also a question for our dean. Sort of like I was wondering more about the history of like where we have come from and why we're here now, searching for this, and why sort of this is the moment.
So it's my understanding, and there are people here who probably know more because they've lived it, that for a number of years there have been committees and commissions and surveys that have happened to address some of the climate issues and address how Santa Clara can grow as a more inclusive, diverse community, to create those generous encounter moments. And so I think one of the recommendations has been to have someone who can think about diversity writ large for the institution, not just about student issues, not just about faculty issues, but really holistically about what diversity means here and what Santa Clara will look like as a more diverse and inclusive place. So I think this is the time that's been identified to create a position that will provide that strategic leadership and vision.
I'll just add that during my time here, there's always been initiatives and a will to, again, make Santa Clara a more inclusive place, a place that really everyone has a sense of belonging. You know, that's kind of gone through ebbs and flows. That changes as institutions change. We're kind of in growth mode. Leadership has changed. I think we are at a time, and we're hearing it from the community that they want to see changes in a number of different ways. And we now also have a president who's made it a priority by way of just, again, deciding to bring in this position who's going to report directly to him. So, but we also want to take in, again, because it is such a position, it's going to be so important in both how it's structured and how it relates to all parts of the institution, is that's why it's important to hear from everyone. But it is trying to get to a place where the culture feels good for everyone, where you know, everything from our policies to how we teach and what we teach is reflective of a place that is more inclusive and has a stronger sense of belonging for everyone.
Hi. So I'm not sure if I got this, but I have a few questions. One is like, why do we need I was wondering why we would want, like Santa Clara would like a third party, and also like, could I hear more about like your company, like what were there projects that are similar to this that you've done that, you know, Santa Clara felt confident in bringing you in?
Sure. So thank you for that. With Kiefer, we're celebrating our 50th year. We work with institutions and organizations that are dedicated to improving the quality of life. So Christine and I work in the education practice, but we also have a life sciences group, nonprofit, an academic
medicine,
medicine.
healthcare, and we're an international firm, so we've been recently expanding internationally.
And we've done a few diversity searches together. Christine actually wrapped up John Carroll recently, and so I think based on the work that we've done, not only in the diversity field but in education, I think that's why Santa Clara chose to select that.
Just kind of looking to some of these questions.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that comes to mind, my only worry, I think the intentions are really good, but my only worry with putting this as a singular position is that you're putting the weight of like one person is supposed to represent all of diversity. So I think one thing that's going to be really important in this search is making sure you find someone who's able to like be intersectional. I think on this campus and in higher education specifically, people with disabilities often get left out of diversity conversations. So I think finding someone who, you know, maybe they're an expert on LGBTQ inclusion, but making sure they also can speak on or know the right people to talk to about like racial justice and disability justice.
Along similar lines, what educational requirements will be necessary for this position? Like, did you have any in mind? I know that for the residence life department, it's required that all pro staff have an advanced degree in any field. I was wondering if it would be required to have an advanced degree in a field around diversity and inclusion.
So since DEI is kind of an emerging field, you don't really see people who have a specific degree in this area, and people come to the work in many different ways. What we typically see in diversity officers, they typically have at least a master's degree. A lot of them do have some type of terminal degree, whether it be a PhD, EDD, or a JD. So, you know, what Santa Clara's requirements will be probably lean towards the PhD preferred. We anticipate that those will be the candidates who will likely attract to the institution and opportunity.
Other questions or possible answers to questions on the board? Allie?
From the perspective of a student, I think as far as like what challenges might exist for the new CDO, is that I think as students we often, or I've noticed that students feel that walking around campus it doesn't feel very diverse, or like we don't feel that you encounter diversity on like an everyday level, and whereas on paper, like there's a fair amount of diversity in the school. So I think like making sure that diversity translates to the diversity we see in our everyday lives. So it might be something students.
Yeah, so you guys said that you're celebrating your 50th year. Congrats. I just wanted to ask, what's the most similar position that you've hired, and what was the candidate that you hired? You know, what similarities are you looking for in that candidate and the candidate here?
Sure. So each campus is different, and that's why we do these listening sessions to find out what are the unique things that would allow a person to be successful at Santa Clara. In terms of looking at profiles of recent placements, let's see, our placement at John Carroll, for example, was someone who had experience in diversity and inclusion at Vanderbilt previously, but had also been on the faculty at another institution, and also brought experience in being an executive director of a nonprofit. So it was a kind of a mix of both inside and outside of higher education experience. Recent placement at Case Western, that person worked in diversity at Ohio State within the law school, and focused a lot on student development there. You know, but had never been on faculty, and that was something, but had really good management experience, and they had a team there that needed strong support, and so that person brought that experience. Looking at Duke, so Duke is one of the few universities that has had a chief diversity officer for many years. That person was retiring. They took that as an opportunity to look at the structure of their office and kind of reimagine how that office might function going forward. So they looked for people who had really strong experience in Title IX compliance, EEO, affirmative action work, but had also done some strategic diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And so got someone who had previously been a vice provost for institutional equity at Johns Hopkins, and prior to that, he started a similar role at the University of Minnesota. So it will vary, and that's why we want to hear from you all about what works, what are your needs, and so we can go out and develop that leadership profile and find the ideal candidate that will help you all meet the opportunities and expectations that you all have for this role.
I have a question regarding the the structure of the position. Would there be a shift of existing resources that are diversity related so that they are under the management of the new CDO, or would there be creation of new positions?
Yeah, so the email from the president that was sent, I believe, addressed that. Am I right? That was the email that came out from the president about how resources would be allocated?
Yeah, I think that that's all part of this review as well, right? So as this profile gets developed, ultimately where it ends up and what resources it needs for it to be successful. So I think there'll be an assessment around that, because of course we want this position to not just exist, but obviously to have the ability to work with other departments to make the changes that it needs. So with that will be resources, but that is I think that is in development as this is evolving.
So to give you all a little bit of context, what we were talking about in the Planning Action Committee, this is going to be essentially a part of the cabinet. It's going to be a cabinet level position, so it's going to have a team under them, but will be directly directly reporting to the president. So if you can kind of imagine what that would look like, we have OML, Office of Diversity and Inclusion, those type of offices, there may or may not be restructuring. That's why we're having this conversation here today. But just to give you some structure, it will be a cabinet level position. That's the structure of it right now.
More questions?
I actually have a few questions. So some of them answer some of the questions up there, and I think that one of the priorities of the CDO would be to have strong beliefs and really advocate for the student body. It's been mentioned that a lot of the diversity forums that, yes, the student voices are heard, but not much action has been done. And so I would appreciate it for this person to really take what they've heard and to really put that into place. And I think it's really important, following up on what Abby said about intersectionality, that it's more than just the numbers, that it also affects other things on campus, such as mental health, such as admissions as well, like following up on what Ali said. And in regards to the allocation of resources, I was wondering if you also oversee compensation, or are you just sourcing a candidate?
Do we determine what the compensation is?
Or do you have any say in what the compensation is, or have any information about it? Like, how can we ensure that this that the CDO will be compensated fairly?
So the president does determine what that compensation will be. And we don't. That's not us.
Oh.
No.
Sorry, did you have more?
I just have one more question. Also overseeing staff training as well. I don't really know what the diversity and inclusion training looks like for faculty and staff members, but I think that this would also be a great undertaking for the CDO as well.
Wondering about what? Implicit bias,
yes,
implicit teaching,
all that.
I think one of the first points that Melanie made, I think kind of plays into the structuring of who might they have more contact with. I think it'd be good for them to have the resources under them, such as OML, to reach the student body more easily and to actually take action. Whereas I can see potentially cabinet level position might only it seems like it would have influence that students wouldn't see. So I think it'd be good to make sure that they have a lot of say in the offices we interact with as students.
One top priority I believe should be considered is socioeconomic diversity. Is oftentimes that me or other friends have felt not discriminated against, but felt uncomfortable because we did not, our parents did not make necessarily as much as other families do with some. So I feel like that should be something because.
Eric. With regards to qualities and qualifications, I just off the top of my head, I was thinking history of relevant policy making might be a good qualitative standard. Also, practical experience outside of a strictly academic setting, and in terms of the top priority, I would say in particular bolstering equitable admissions for the school, and just training of faculty and such. Kind of rebolstering the training process, I guess.
Yeah, Abby?
I think Eduardo.
No.
Okay. Just one other thing, just for tangible things to take back to this person. I think they need to be able to articulate problems of tokenization, which is something we struggle with on this campus, especially since we aren't a super diverse population. I've noticed our school and our administrators often tokenize our diversity. One example is we have a program called LEAD, which is for first-generation college students, and it's one of the most promoted things by our administrators. They talk really highly of it. It's in the front page of every promotional material, but they don't have permanent funding, and that's something that students have had to be the main advocates on because there isn't a person an administrator talking about that.
Eddie?
I think for me, one thing would be forming greater relations with the Multicultural Center. One thing that I've been thinking a lot about in the past has been that sometimes certain clubs are having certain difficulty, managing their affairs and whatnot, and I think that it can help lend hand to giving these clubs within the MCC greater exposure, which I think could be good on the scope of the university as a whole.
Time for 2 more questions or comments. Just about. Sile? Or Zach, go first.
So there's a student organization that's on the campus that's pretty prevalent in the field of diversity, which, students here know about it. It's the Inclusive Excellence Student Advisory Council. And this is a pretty important institution that was created by students for students, which deals with all these questions of diversity and inclusion. That it doesn't really have any official standing on the campus necessarily, other than that it's I'm pretty new to this campus, but from what I've observed, it seems to be that it's just an organization that is intended to represent those student interests on campus. So I think some emphasis being placed on how a potential candidate for the CDO could work with that council on those sorts of issues would help to alleviate maybe student concerns that voices of the students would be represented within the cabinet level, if that makes sense.
So
a couple of challenges that I see the CDO might have is one, finding their how they're going to organize their team, because they're going to be collaborating with a lot of different other offices. So finding their kind of place in each of those offices and how basically how to make sure diversity is included in most, if not all, aspects of the university operations. I think that's going to be one big challenge. Another one is also understanding the feel of Santa Clara when they first come in. They're going to be brand new to the campus, so I really hope that the person that ends up getting the job makes it a point to be visible. Visibility on campus is something that's huge and not often talked about. So along with the administration, I think the general sense of the campus is if they see that you're there, there's more a presence. They know who to talk to. They know this person's around, and at least hearing some of the concerns and being a part of the campus. So not just sitting up in their office, but actually being around with the students.
Raul? Oh, it was Raul. Oh, did you have a question?
Yeah. Sorry. I just wanted to ask, is the process the same for internal and external searches?
There's an internal candidate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, could you speak up for the minutes?
Okay, so if there's, I guess, an internal search and there's internal candidates applying, how are we regulating or I guess assessing their capacity to fulfill this new position, and I guess what qualities, I guess, and qualifications, well, this kind of is on there, but what qualifications would make someone within the university already qualifiable for this role?
Yeah, so we would, so internal candidates, external candidates all go through the same process. No one gets any preferential treatment. We would measure their qualifications against the leadership profile, just like we would do with any external candidate. So we've been on campus all day today. We have another day of meetings tomorrow, and we're listening out for themes to pull out what are those things that would make a person successful, and we will put those in the leadership profile. We'll use that document to measure and assess us and the search committee, because it's their decision of who moves forward, if an internal or external candidate meets the requirements that you all are looking for.
And a follow-up question to that: if an internal candidate makes it to the final round or something like that, are students able to object or I guess interject in that? Just because I guess my concern is that a lot of students don't feel comfortable sometimes with certain individuals taking administrative roles that have, I guess, proven time and time again that they're not they don't have the student's best interest in mind. And for this specific position, I think it's important and imperative that that person is able to work with students, and if that person isn't professional in their role, isn't displaying the SCU values and mission, then I don't think that person should be in this position.
So what will happen is you'll have finalist candidates who come back to campus. Then that will be later on in the spring, ideally later on in the spring. After each person comes to visit, you will have the opportunity to provide feedback on your interactions with that candidate. You'll be able to do that via a survey, and so that would be where you would object if there is an issue.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you can object to anyone, any of the candidates.
And there will also be members of the search committee that, if you want, you can convey your feelings toward those people. I do want to point out, because our time is done, that we do have a survey that's up now. So I know everyone didn't get to speak. So please feel free to access that survey and provide some insight. If you have individuals that you think might be good for this position, I encourage you to email that email address, and we will follow up with those individuals when we launch the search.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for the mug. Yes, and again, there's an email that you all should have in your inbox, so please fill out the survey. I know this was just a short moment of time with you. Ask your peers, classmates, friends to also just, the more information, the better for us. And we'll keep updating you as the search progresses, especially when it comes time to be able to listen to the finalists, okay? Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Okay, next on the agenda we have the WASC Senior College University Commission Pathway to Reaffirmation of Accreditation. And here to talk about that is Mr. Ed Ryan. Thank you for being here, Mr. Ryan.
Thanks so much for having me.
Fun fact, Mr. Ryan is Jack Ryan's uncle, who is a buddy of mine.
No way. Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. Well, thank you all so much for your time today. I was here a year ago to provide a little bit of update about WASC. I just want to circle back because we've just submitted the report to the external team. For those who don't know, every 10 years the university needs to be evaluated by WASC, which is a regional accreditor. It's one of 6 accrediting agencies across the country. Everybody has to be part of one. And we do it for a number of reasons. I got you. All right. Okay, thanks. The first and foremost, I think it provides the university an opportunity to sort of do a deep dive into the institution and ask the question, are we doing what we say we do? We have a great mission statement, we have a good vision statement, do we actually meet those obligations? And so we take this time every 10 years to evaluate ourselves. We go through a process where we do a self-study, and that's what I'm here to talk a little bit about today, and we submit a report to a group of external faculty and presidents at other institutions who then will come to campus in October 2020 to judge us and evaluate us on how well we're doing. 2 other reasons we want to go through accreditation, or we think it's a good thing to do. One, once we get accredited, it approves to, or serves as a sort of a stamp to external stakeholders that we do what we say we're going to do. And we think that's important. And then lastly, to receive financial aid from the U.S. Department of Education, we have to be accredited, so we're complying with those standards to be good neighbors with the U.S. Department of Education. So those are sort of the 3 big reasons that we do that. Let me talk a little bit about the timeline. I apologize, got a little jumbled. But the University Coordinating Committee sort of commissioned a working group back in 2017, so it's a long process. It's been about 3 years. We spent a fair amount of time, the working group, looking at the WASC standards. So there's 4 standards from WASC, and there's 39 criteria, and we engaged in a self-assessment, sort of a deep dive of what those are, and we rated ourselves among them. We also looked at dozens of surveys that you all complete, so every student completes surveys throughout your time here. I'm sure you're sick of them. We also looked at faculty surveys, Harry surveys, our retention rates. So looked at a whole lot of data to use that to identify a series of strengths and challenges that we think the university has. And I came here last March to talk with the student senate about some of those strengths and challenges. So I'll do that again today. So then we drafted the report, sort of identified where we think we're doing particularly well and where we think we have some work to do. Shared the draft with the campus, the faculty and staff back in October. Had to send the report off to WASC in January, so just sent it off. And here to talk with you today about it, to share it with you, show where it's accessible on the site. You have time for the next 6 months to review it. We actually had the external review team comes in October 2020, and then we'll have some open student sessions at that point where students can give feedback to say, here's where we think school is doing well, here's where we need, there's some room for improvement. Once all that happens, then the WASC team will make an evaluation, a report, share with us and say how we're doing and how long they give us for accreditation or where they don't. I'm pretty confident that we'll do well, but you never know. So anyways, we'll find out more in October 2020. There's 9 sections of the report. I won't go through every single section today, just given time, but I'll do a sort of a high-level overview. So the first 2 sections, really, we try to describe the university. What are our mission, our goals? What makes Santa Clara distinct from other institutions? We talk a lot about the co-curricular learning experiences, the residential learning communities, all of the RSOs and that. They talk about how a Santa Clara degree is fundamentally different than another institution. Sections 3 through 6 really deal with the academic nature of the institution. And for WASC, this is WASC language, but they're concerned with this idea of the meaning of the degree and the integrity. And what they mean for meaning is at every degree level, so whether it's bachelor's, master's, or doctorate level, we have to describe what does a degree for Santa Clara mean to our students? We talk about the core curriculum in that. We describe the core curriculum in depth. We talk about the majors and how they sort of scaffold up. We talk about how the co-curricular experiences outside the classroom all are designed to really fulfill our mission and goals, which is creating a more humane, just, and sustainable world. So we talk a lot about that in sections 3 and 4. And once we describe the degree, then we have to show how our students are actually meeting that degree and how we're doing as a result. And that gets into the idea of assessment data. Folks know a lot about assessment or no? I'll do a very high overview. So we have to engage in a pretty deep dive of what we call assessment. And what essentially that means is once you've taken your coursework, the faculty member keeps a subsection of those papers, and we do sort of grading, not necessarily to say how the student did, but how well they understand key concepts. And there's sort of rubrics, and we measure this. And so we do this for the core curriculum. We do it for the major work every single year. So we have mounds of data that really show how well students are performing to the faculty's expectations, not just in terms of grading, but really getting key concepts. And so we use that assessment data to prove our students are doing a good job, or we think we're doing it, or where there's areas for improvement. So that's sections 3 through 6 really talk a little bit about that. You can go. So I won't go into every single piece of data because literally it's 90 pages long, and there's dozens of examples of student success, but I just wanted to show a few high-level overviews. So this one really is results of assessment data, assessment work at the upper division of writing, the 3rd writing course that folks have. We're actually pretty proud of this because we did, Santa Clara met with 4 of the schools. We pulled about 500 student pieces of work of writing samples across 4 institutions and analyzed them and judged them across 4 different areas. So this first one, you can't probably read it, but context and purpose, content development, uses of sources and evidence, and then use of syntax and mechanics. And so these faculty met for about a week and sort of judged each other's papers, blind reading. And 3 would be they are proficient, and a 4 would be excellent. Santa Clara is the red box. So at every level, Santa Clara students met what the faculty determined to be proficient. But I think what's also impressive is you can see, not to brag, but Santa Clara is a little bit higher than the other schools, so we're quite proud of that work that our students, and this isn't just our faculty, this was a cross-section of faculty from other schools doing the reading as well on blind. So we didn't know who was from Santa Clara at the time, or they didn't know who's from the other institutions. But again, I think it's showing that Santa Clara does do a good job of, and the students really, of meeting the learning goals. So that's just one example. In the report, there's dozens. Also, we talk a lot about sort of 2 key hallmarks. One is first-year retention, and ours is quite high. As you can see, again, a set of benchmark institutions. 94% of our students in the most recent year returned after their first year, which is a significant marker. But also what we're more proud of is within 6 years, 90% of our students graduate. And just to put this in context, we're in the top 100 of 4,000 schools across the country. So having a 90% hallmark is pretty strong, and we're quite proud of that. I think it speaks to the high quality students that we have, but also their experiences at Santa Clara, so a mixture of both. Another thing we're particularly proud of, we talk a lot about this, is we look at this data not only by the whole population, but we break it down by demographic. And so here we look at race and ethnicity, SES status, financial aid recipient status, and then academic unit. And one of the things we're pretty proud of is regardless of unit, generally most are in the range of 88% or higher with a few exceptions. So in general, what we're trying to say is not just one group, but all groups are generally succeeding and achieving well. So quite proud of that fact. Section 6 is fairly bureaucratic. It just talks about the process that we have to ensure integrity and assure that we have deep dives into the data. So I won't go into a lot of detail about that. And then section 7 and 8 really talk about some of our challenges and things we have to work on. So we thought it was important to sort of call these out. So section 7 is talking about the financial viability of the institution. Generally speaking, we're pretty good. Up top, don't know if you can see, but this is sort of our bond rating. So other Jesuit institutions, we have a AA3, and I'm not a financier, but generally that's in the 3rd highest rating possible. So we're of the 27 Jesuit schools, we're the higher, with us and Boston College have the highest ratings. So we're proud of that. So financially, we're stable. We also talk in the report a lot about how we try to make sure our resources support the academic endeavors. And so here you'll see this second graph shows the growth in enrollment over the past 6-7 years, but we've also tried to show that just as we're growing the student body, we're also being very intentional in growing the tenure track faculty. So something we're trying to work at to make a dedicated effort. A of course, we also have some challenges, since we talk a lot about college affordability in the report, and we also talk about compensation and housing being the Bay Area. It's no surprise. Those are tough things. We talk about some of the things we've done, but also acknowledge we have a whole lot more to do to be more affordable for students and to have affordable housing. And if you can go to the last slide, and this is Section 8 follows up with our last set of challenges. This is something I'm pretty proud of. I know it sounds goofy, but most institutions don't write a Section 8. And we thought it was important to say, you know what, we have some challenges, we know what they are, we're going to call them out and put them on a piece of paper and say, this is what we have to do work on. So the 4 we highlighted, one we talked about in Section 7, which is finance, around finances and housing. But here we talked about diversity as a challenge. We talked a lot about the blue ribbon work that's happened, and also the 10 priority areas. We talked about sort of what we're doing, the roadmap ahead. The idea of institutional support. This wasn't an area where I think we looked at faculty-student interactions, and we think they're good, but we think we can do better. And so talking about some of the work we've done, particularly with faculty, to improve campus classroom climate and improve faculty-student interactions. And then lastly, we talked a lot about governance, decision-making, transparency, and how we think we can do a better job. Hearing feedback from campus climate that there's more work to be done. So all that's to say that is a 90-page report in about 5 minutes. Thank you for your patience. Happy to answer any questions. The last thing I'll say, if you can go to the last slide, is one, so the report's out there. You can either go to this website or you can just type in Provost and accreditation in Santa Clara and it'll pop up. The report's out there, happy to read it. I'd say if you're, it's 90 pages long. I think the sections probably are most interest are section 1, 7, and 8. Each section's about 10 pages. 3 through 6 really get into some pretty dense assessment work, so you may want to read that, but if not, the highlights are 1, 7, 8, and 9. Happy to seek feedback. Happy to answer any questions you have right now. But the other thing I'll say is in October 2020, for folks who don't graduate this year, we will have open forums with the WASC external team, and they'll want to hear from students and say what's working and what's not working. So that's that.
Question then Vidya, then Ariel.
Thank you. I was just wondering, so you mentioned that like affordable tuition is like, I guess, a challenge.
Yep.
With like plans to, I guess, increase the undergraduate student body, and with like the yearly 3.5 to 5% tuition increase, what efforts will you guys do to like keep tuition affordable?
Good question. So I'd say over the past, I'm on the University Budget Committee. I think we've been trying to really keep it at 4%. So we haven't gone above 4% since I've been on the committee. So I think that's not, it's not 5%, which I think is better than 5%, but we have a lot more work to do. So I'd say, I think 2 things. One is it's really about creating more financial aid dollars. That's one effort. I think the other effort is to control costs, because I think Father Brian said this quite a bit, like, we need to make the institution more affordable, and we're not going to do it by just fundraising financial aid dollars alone. And so it's really about controlling costs. So I think there's a number of things. About 2 years ago, there was an effort called Sustaining Excellence, and that was an effort to look at, are there ways we can control costs, or can we generate new forms of revenue that aren't undergraduate based? Few successes from that, but I think we have to do more of that work. The trustees, so I'm on the University Budget Council. That's the greatest priority of the trustees, is keeping it affordable. I think if you ask the average trustee, they would say we shouldn't have tuition increases. That's their goal. But that means we have to figure out a way to save and still provide all the resources that students need, which we know there's significant, particularly around mental health, those types of things. So I think probably in the long term, there's some things we're going to have to cut that are nice to have, but we have to make sacrifices is too strong a word, but I think we have to determine what are our core priorities and let some things go that may not fit in with Father's sort of goal of access and affordability. That makes sense. Vidya.
I guess my question was similar, like if we can brag that we're financially stable and at the top, then why does our tuition keep increasing?
Yeah.
Yet we also have issues about like paying adjunct lectures and housing.
Yeah. It's a complicated question. It's a very good question. So I'll say my piece. I don't speak for the university, but I can sort of say my piece on being on the member of the University Budget Council. So there's a guy named Howard Bowen, economist in the 1970s, probably the leading economist of higher education economics. And he said in 1970, I still think it's true today, higher education is probably one of the sectors that you can't make become more efficient or cost effective. You look at the automotive industry, you look at the computer chip, all those things become faster and cheaper. The reason higher education has a challenge is people. That for our type of institution, fundamentally 70% of the operating budget is spent on human resources, people, and salaries. And we have the challenge, the blessing, and the curse of being located in Silicon Valley. And so we have to pay higher wages to our faculty and staff so they can afford to live here. So that's the reason, that's the largest, most significant pressure on our budget is faculty and staff salaries. So I think that's what we're struggling with, and that's why we have tuition increases to be able to provide merit increases to faculty and staff. Some schools, like Stanford, have a $20 billion endowment. We don't have that. We have $1 billion, so that's good, but it's not 20, so you have less flexibility. So I think that's why it is expensive, is really the human resources that we have to support. Some schools have gone to online, and so people don't necessarily, Berkeley School of Music. You wouldn't think a School of Music could have online programs, but they actually figure out a way to have their first-year cohort not come to campus. So they're living at home, it's a little bit more cheaper. Some of their faculty are teaching online, and so they're not living in Boston Metro. So I think there's probably some things we can do with online to make it a little bit more affordable. But the reality is that 30% of our costs are based on human capital. In terms of adjuncts, I think the university has been working on faculty salaries quite a bit, and that's in the report for adjunct faculty, for lecturers, and for tenure track, but we have a ways to go. So it's not an easy, it's what keeps me up at night. So, good question.
We'll go Ariel, and then one more question.
So on top of like finances, beyond just like affordability, financial literacy or like fiscal literacy is decreasing like as a whole, just for the youth in general, but especially at a school like Santa Clara where it is very costly to go here. I feel like one of the key learning goals could be to teaching fiscal literacy, because if you're not in a business school, I mean, a lot of kids and students that I talk to don't even know what kind of debt they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. So I'll say, I think the dean of school business, I think she was here a few weeks ago, I think would echo you and sort of applaud your comments. In about a year and a half, I suspect we'll go through a core curriculum revision, and I think that's a fair point. But I think there's probably, every student will probably benefit from a coding class. I think that's true across the country. And I think everybody would probably benefit from some type of business course, whether it's financial literacy or basic economics for living your life. I think those are fair points. So I think that'll probably be part of the conversation around the core curriculum in the next year or so.
Last comment?
How's it going, Mr. Ryan? I actually work in institutional research, and I helped fill out the report.
I appreciate it.
To struggle, I appreciate it. I just wanted to ask about tuition increases. So when I was working in IR, I did some independent research on our tuition increases annually, because I could look at the data all the time and then compare it to similar institutions. And I found that compared to institutions that aren't in Silicon Valley but are similar to our school, it's pretty comparable. How much would you attribute that to increasing pressure to raise prices to stay in to stay competitive with other schools, and how much do you attribute that to inflation from our location?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll say there's a little. It's a tricky business, and again, we talk a lot about this on the University Budget Council. We can't speak to other institutions about tuition because of concerns around collusion. So we look at historical data. We can never sort of have conversations about future tense. I'm surprised. Well, let me say two things. I'll say 2 decades ago, I think there was a different attitude towards tuition across all of higher ed than there is now. I think in the past there was this view that, hey, we need to keep up with the Joneses, so we're going to increase our price so that we look attractive. So it's sort of like we want to look like the Cadillac, but we have to have Cadillac prices to do that. Post-recession, nobody's doing that. So people used to, before 2008, there were regularly across higher education 5%, 6%, 7% tuition increases. I think the past is now coming back to haunt us, and so I sort of curse some of those people. Post 2008, very few people are doing that. You see 3%, 4%, and really my sense is those people are just trying to keep up with inflation and the cost of salaries. What I'm surprised by, because we really make a commitment to try to keep it 3.5, if we have to 4% a year. I'm shocked if you look at a Gonzaga or a Portland, which is in a much more affordable area, they're still increasing at the same rates, even though they don't have the cost of living issue or the wages. So I'm surprised that they're not lower than us. Because we have this sort of rainbow chart, we call it, of all the institutions in their past tuition from the last year and the increase over time. We're within that band of all the schools, but we're facing a whole lot more pressure in terms of cost. So I think it's a little bit of inflation. For us, that's what the driver is, and really keeping salaries competitive. I'm a little surprised by the other schools.
Do you think they're trying to look kind of more like a Cadillac, whereas we have more of a reason to?
Some of it, I think before 2008, I'd say yes. I'm surprised now how they do it. And you can't talk to them about it, but there's a few schools. Loyola Marymount has, in certain areas, double the staff we have. I don't know how they pay for it. So there's certain schools, I just don't know how they keep doing it, but they make it work. But it's a tricky business. So.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Thank you. Okay, Nicole, can we have you in front of the room? Okay, so Nicole, I interviewed you for senior senator. Please introduce yourself, all met you before, and talk about why you like the position.
Okay, well, I came here last quarter, right after a concussion. So I don't really remember what's happened since then. So we're just gonna kind of go roll with that. Yeah, originally I was asked after that first meeting, this is what I do remember. So he was like, hey, do you want to be senior senator at large? And I was like, no, at medium. And then I found out I was just senior senator, and I was like, oh, I kind of care about the size, but that's okay. But yeah, like, I don't know, that sounds really fun. Like, I was always part of student government in high school, and this seems like a great opportunity. Like, in my last, now quarter and a half, oh my gosh, my mom likes to give me weekly updates. So she'll be like, oh, only 14 weeks left. And I'm like, I really don't need that. But thanks for supporting me. But yeah, I think it'd be a great time to get involved now at this last moment. And also been through 4 years, seen the trash, seen the greatness, and actually not afraid to critique it now. I think there's a big thing, someone was saying earlier when they were talking to someone, what's the fear in standing up to faculty or people not being as willing to speak out against something, and I'm like, I have no restraints. So, I'm willing to say it. Take this one. I'm still polite though, in a positive way. Okay.
All right. Questions or comments for Nicole? Vidya, and then Mika, and then Obasi.
So with 15 weeks left, I guess what's your priority? Trash you want to fix? How will you do it in a short time?
Yeah, I think it probably goes down to culture. I think that's a big issue that SU has more than they want to admit. So I think just working with students, working more with faculty, and being part of this group, being able to assimilate and see more what y'all are doing too. Yeah.
Do you have any potential projects that you would like to work on while you're a senator or potentially a senator?
Oh gosh. Well, actually, I'm kind of in an interesting position because my mom is actually an adjunct faculty here in the business school. So I know maybe a little bit more than what I want to know about faculty relations and students. So I think that gives me interesting insight. So I think that might be an interesting thing to kind of cover or do. Yeah.
They kind of took my question, but no, I'm just kidding. But what are your goals as senator in the next 15 to 14 weeks?
Yeah, I think goals is actually connecting with the community. Because to be honest, in 4 years, no offense, what y'all do is absolutely fantastic. But I saw the ASG emails each week, and I usually just archive them. I did not read. I never even looked at the minutes. That's something where it's just not promoted well. But then I actually started reading them over this past weekend, and I was like, wow, they're actually really informative. So I think even that so I think even that finding a way that you can actually communicate with the general SU student population is important. So that's a goal. Yeah.
Christina, yes.
I think last time you stood before us, you mentioned something about parking. Would that be like?
Oh my God! Yes.
That you want to pursue?
Commuter for 4 years. Yikes! Especially now with all the construction. Not gonna lie, like they just hoard the 3rd floor of the north parking garage. Yeah. And it's hard to find parking. It's hard to find, like, some of my friends like are always just parking on the street. They're stressed. Like that's like it needs to be fixed. I have thought of so many solutions. You know, why did parking passes start in my freshman year at $325? Now they're at $400. Questions I have in addition to tuition. So that's just something in general that I think about. It keeps me up at night. So yeah. Yeah.
So we're gonna cut off questions and comments there.
Okay.
Nicole, can we have the room?
I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I need to run into the table too long.
Okay. So I brought her right here. She's great, right? Okay. Comments or questions about Nicole?
She's cool. I'm excited. So I hope you all vote yes. I have class with her, and she's just like really, really fun to like be around. And she's also a comm major, and she's like in film and stuff, so she's like creative and stuff too. So I think she already has ideas for projects. So I actually think she'll be like really cool to work with.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think I've worked with her recently to study for my musicianship midterm, and I thought that was really cool to see. Like maybe she'll bring some like artsiness, you know, as well as like really cool ideas that I think are very tangible.
Yeah, she's a pretty serious musician. One of the things she mentioned in her interview was that she thinks she literally has a friend in every major.
Yeah, I think so.
So she says she has a unique perspective on that, and she has some thoughts. Obasi?
I've worked with Nicole like since freshman year on Love Jones and doing talent shows and stuff, and she's been extremely professional, but in her own fun way, and I think that's something really unique that she brings to the table.
Awesome. Okay. So, can I get a motion to vote?
Motion to vote.
Second.
Motion from Kyle, second from Meg. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. And the question of appointing Nicole Jacobus as senior senator. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The motion passes unanimously, so let's welcome her back in.
I have to because I didn't do it for years.
You get confirmed this time around. No way. Okay.
Okay, so put your left hand on the file and your right hand up and repeat after me.
Okay, what if I'm left-handed?
Okay, so I, please state your name.
I, Nicole Jacobus,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold the Constitution and bylaws
to uphold the Constitution and bylaws
of the Associated Student Government at Santa Clara University.
of the Associated Student Government at Santa Clara University.
Congratulations.
Have a seat at the table now, since you're
Oh my gosh.
Welcome.
Okay.
Okay, so our mock trial, is mock trial here? Okay, perfect. It's center of the room. Thank you.
Okay.
So Kyle, do you have a spiel?
So you just have 3 minutes to present. I'll raise one finger up when you have 1 minute left, and wait when your time's up.
Perfect.
When you're ready.
Keep it quick for you. I'll move over a little too. Okay, hi, I'm Julia Shaver. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Santa Clara University mock trial team. And I'm here today to request some funding for you guys for our regional competition. So regionals is the culmination of our mock trial season. We start preparing in summer and continue all the way through fall and winter quarter. This year, it's going to be held in Colorado Springs for us. They decide where we get sent. We don't really get a say in that, and so they've decided to send both of our teams to Colorado Springs to compete. As a result, that's really amped up the financial burden on us because we have to buy plane tickets and things. But it is really beneficial, and we obviously would want to send both of our teams because Santa Clara, we have a law school here, and so it would be good to, you know, cultivate more of a law emphasis on campus for undergrads. And mock trial is really the way that we do that. And if we can get a team to regionals, that opens up the possibility that we could continue on to nationals and become a nationally ranked team. So it would be great to generate more interest, to really emphasize that pre-law opportunity that we have here with a connection to the actual law school. And so our fundraising, we have a GoFundMe currently active. We've been getting donations from some parents that will continue this quarter and next quarter. Additionally, if we aren't able to secure enough funds, to take care of the need this quarter, we are considering continuing our fundraising in other ways into spring quarter. We are also working with the pre-law department to get funding from them, but they're, a little pressed because they fund other things as well. So we have club dues, and the current balance is $1,273. So what I'm requesting from you guys really is funding for our travel and our lodging. The total amount I'm requesting is $2,196.90. That's because plane tickets are quite expensive, even with what we do to get around that. And so any support that we could get from you guys would be great in that regard. We will have food expenses as well, but you guys don't cover that, and that is totally okay, so I'm not asking for that. It's really just travel and lodging is the most important to us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So Kyle will aggregate questions from the senators and pass them along to you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. So Igwe will be presenting next week instead. So let's move on to the amendment to the resolution establishing ad hoc committee for standing room orders. Is it just not fully loaded, Zach? Is that why the comments on that? Did I pick the wrong one?
That's the wrong one. So the one that I sent out had like red and yellow.
I got it from your email.
Oh no, what happened to it? The one I sent out was a PDF.
Go to my email and
is this one?
Oh, it just didn't come. It didn't pop up into the. Okay, we can just look at it here then, right?
Oh yeah, it's not that complicated. There's a note that I made here is just like a grammatical thing. I was just like, that looks dumb, so I fixed that. And then the other thing was that the substantive change is this, that there are two potential, one new member and then one advisor that I wanted to add to the committee post the adoption of the resolution from last quarter. The advisor is Kat, because Kat had mentioned to me that she should have been involved from the beginning, which was my fault for not although the resolution was around for 2 weeks before we voted on it, but I'm glad that Kat will now be an advisor on the committee because she brings a lot of value to it. So, yeah, period. And then the second thing was a potential student member that's not a member of the Senate. This is something that I would encourage us to do across our committees, actually, where we have at least one member who's sort of an at-large student. It's a term that's a little bit awkward to equivocate with at-large senators, but the meaning of it, from what I understand, is this idea that somebody who's not a member of the Senate could be involved in the committee in some fashion. I propose for this ad hoc committee, if you could scroll down, actually, to the membership. Oh, there it is. Nope. One non-senator student at large, appointed by the chair of the Senate, obviously. Specifically, hold on, I gotta remember her name. I met her. Avery James. She was a senator last year. Yep. Oh, she already met her. She is. And she's really cool, and she was really involved in Robert's rules and discussions around procedure last year. And I had talked with her for a while, and she seemed very interested in the idea of joining this committee. So that's one specific person that I had in mind, although she hasn't gotten back to me yet. But I'd like to leave the option open for her if she would like to join the committee, which is part of this amendment. And then one last note is this. I noticed in our resolutions, there's this awkward thing that we do where we usually, I noticed in the last one, the one that I based this off of, where it said be it therefore resolved, after the emphasizing, recognizing, affirming, all those sorts of I can't remember what they're called. They're preambular clause phrase things. It's a weird thing. I know this is what Model UN uses as their format, but I noticed that in Model UN resolutions they have a verb in the operative clauses. It's just a big nerdy thing of me to make it fit with that, because in a sense this is one big sentence. Recognizing this, we establish this, rather than recognizing this, be it therefore resolved this. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why I changed that. I'm just curious if you guys care about that at all. I care. So that's it.
So since this is not an amendment to the bylaws, would you all be comfortable reviewing this, talking about it for a bit, and then voting on it tonight? North South? Good. Cool. So,
you want to move it?
Zachary, we're going to debate it, and since we're not used to that kind of moving to debate yet, we're just going to do it the way we usually do it.
Sounds good.
Okay. So, any questions for Zachary on the changes you see above? Video.
Can you scroll down to the non-senator part?
Speak up for the minutes.
Oh yeah. So, are you saying that they shouldn't, like the student at large is not a senator, or do you not want them as part of ASG? Or can they be like another branch of ASG and that's fine?
Yes. Yes, they can be another member of ASG.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, try to fully answer that.
Abby.
My only worry is when I'm on the committee, we've already been meeting for 5 weeks and gone over some new material. Do you think that are you gonna like catch that person up, or are we gonna have to go through everything?
That's a good question. Yeah, I hadn't really discussed this with you guys yet. Unfortunately, I should have brought it up. I know. That's a good point. This is sort of leaving the option open for us. The answer to your question is I would work with Avery on my own with her to catch her up on what we've discussed so far in the committee, and she'll be able to join in as a non-senator perspective on what we've been working on. Does that make sense?
Additional comments, questions? Okay. Can I get a motion to vote? Motion from Meg, second from Cole. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. On the question of adopting the reviewed amendments to the resolution creating an ad hoc committee for standing rules and orders, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Okay. The motion passes. Amendments are clear for takeoff. Okay, was that? Cool, that was it. Now into old business RSO voting. So we go to committee updates. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect time. Welcome.
Yeah. So ESOs, so Bowling Club, we presented last week. I sent out an email and they would like to be an ESO instead of an RSO, so they'll go through the whole process. And then, as according to the bylaw, I'll let you guys know that SAC approved Bread Lovers Club to be a ESO RSO person. So this is just in relation to the email I sent out Wednesday evening about the criteria. I talked to Ted and we changed some things. These are the main 2 points just to consider when debating whether to approve or not approve an RSO. And then finally, these are the RSO applications, and these are the recommendations by SAC. So pause, German, ban de selection, and every vote counts yeses. With that, I will state is that a couple of those we did email out to ask for ESOs, and they haven't responded yet. And if they do respond to the ESO, when we vote for RSO, they'll be moved to make them go through the ESO process instead.
Kyle, one question. What's the status on Developers Club? Why is it taking so long?
They had to go through legal. I don't, Ted, do you have anything to add about that?
Yeah, our legal counsel actually approved it back in, right after Thanksgiving. So the bottleneck is actually on Google's end. I sent them the 4th reminder this morning saying, hey, can we get this going? Because the students are anxious to get started.
Thank you.
Bro? Which ones did you say would be ESO? Or which ones did you consider for ESO?
On that list right there, German Club and every vote counts.
There were other clubs that or potential RSOs that presented, right? So are we voting on those next week, or what is the reasoning?
They'll be next week. Reason is Archery Club, we have still discussed in SAC. Surf Rider, we're seeing if there's any overlap with Surf Club. Esports Club, any overlap with Gamers Guild. And I believe there's one more that we still need to talk about.
Orthodox Christian.
That one, they just replied back to an email regarding questions that Helen sent me for them. So we still have to analyze those.
So you're still talking.
Sorry?
You're just still talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Additional questions, comments? Kyle and members of SAC, thanks for your work on this. Can I get a motion to white ballot?
Motion to white ballot.
Those recommended is yes.
Motion to white ballot, those recommended is yes.
Second.
motion from Eric, second from Justin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, for new members, so white ballot is to vote on everything all at once. So we'll essentially be putting pause, German club, Bande Selection, and every vote counts into a basket, and voting on that basket. Okay, is that clear? Nicole?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay, so on the question of the white ballot containing pause, German club, Bande Selection, and every vote counts, all those are in favor of approving those clubs as RSOs. Say yep. Say aye. Aye. Thank you. Aye. All opposed, say no. Okay. So those four are clear for takeoff. No. I'm going to keep that going. Is there anything else on your slides? Okay. Did we have slides with Senator of the Week and King of the Week? Okay. I can just announce them. That's cool. No, we don't. We'll get back into some of that, but I'll just announce them. So Senator of the Week this week is our very wonderful Emmy. Because she on a great diversity panel. It was a really successful event. I was only able to show my face, but it looked like it was going really well. You had a good turnout, and it was very professional. So congratulations to you. Thank you. And our nickname of the week is Gucci Sneakers Theo. Yes, he's not wearing them today, but keep an eye out. That's him in his natural habitat. So. On to roundtable remarks. Eddie, could you go to the Senate sheet? Okay, could you go to the members tab and scroll down? Okay, really quick, could you type in Nicole Jacobus's name as a senior senator? As you can all see, we are full of U.S.
Spelled it wrong.
It's U.S.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, I apologize. But take a look up there.
My number was there.
You all have access to this sheet. You all have access to the sheet. It is in the shared ASG drive. So if you look up and you see that there's some contact information for you missing, just go and fill it in. That'd be super helpful. Phone numbers are, for some reason, harder to get.
No, I
guess
put
it all
my
matters.
in, so I put my down. I put my in.
Oh.
Julia wants to.
Okay. So I think I'm missing two freshman senator phone numbers. Maybe I just haven't put it in there. But yeah, go ahead. This is so that we can contact each other, so that you can like copy and paste a bunch of emails, and so we just make communication easier. So help yourself out, help me out. Also, go to the committees tab really quick. Awesome. I think these are not accurate. So, what am I missing? I'm missing Obasi, I'm missing Helen and Anne.
Yeah. We should add the ad on there.
And Meg. Okay. Yeah, I forgot that I had this tab. So I hadn't touched it in forever.
Put me under sec.
Oh.
Or you need more funding now.
Wow.
I predict Zach.
And
what committee is Obasi?
Zach.
What was that?
Zach.
No,
I get nothing.
Is it accurate
You are
now?
not taking my
And what about you?
I'm sorry.
Hell yeah. Don't even bring up bylaws right now.
And Ellen?
Do you want an ad hoc?
Yeah.
Do that. Right now. But good idea. Okay. Thank you guys for that help. Once again, just fill in your contact info on the members tab. Hey. So yeah, fill in your contact info on the members tab. Thanks for your help there. The next thing I had was to clarify like what roundtable remarks is. It's not just open to senators; it's also open to the public. So it's kind of going to act as our town hall. But first and foremost, it's for you. It's for you all to ask help from your fellow senators and ASG members for help on your projects. So if you have hit a wall and you're not sure where to go, you can raise your hand and say, hey, I just talked to such and such person and they kind of like gave me nothing. They kind of snubbed me. So, and then maybe a fellow senator will have interacted with that person before, and they'll say, oh, they really like their coffee with 2 sugars and cream, so maybe you bring them that coffee, and then you're best friends. So that's what Roundtable Remarks is for, and have at it. Oh, also, another thing, I'm not going to call on people. I'm just gonna sit back, and it's gonna be like a Socratic.
Okay, well, we need volunteers for Splash the day of. Yeah.
Just to elaborate, we're going to need like 50 volunteers. So if you guys aren't teaching a class, please highly consider volunteering the day of.
I made a form for it, so I'll send it out to all you guys soon. Tell your friends, please.
Justin, can you remind us what the dates are again?
Yeah. So Splash is on May 16th. That's week 7. We changed the date. We postponed it by a month. May 16th, Saturday. It's the same day as LSU Culture Show, but yeah. And it's from 10 to 4. 10 to 4 p.m. If you're teaching, you don't have to teach the whole time. And if you're volunteering, you have to volunteer like shifts. But you don't have to volunteer the whole time.
A document kind of describing that might be good to put in the shared folder. That way we can share it with people. Like if you put like a QR code or something, that way we can like share it with their friends more easily.
We have informational flyers coming out soon with QR codes and stuff.
It'd be like mocking like being like an orientation leader, like where you're like bringing kids from place to place and like, holding up signs.
Yeah.
So.
You know, I'll figure it out.
Are these teachers or not?
These are just, I'm talking about volunteers. Like we need just like logistics, day of volunteers. So you don't need to teach a class if you don't want to do that.
We're also tabling for Splash next week, so if you guys want to stop by, and stickers, really cool stickers.
If we're teaching, can we help volunteer the day of, or do we have to pick one?
If you're not teaching like all of the courses, then yeah, you can help volunteer. Always need help.
Speaking of snubbing, we emailed David, Charlie, and Sahil an idea, and David and Charlie didn't get back. So thanks so much for what they like their coffee. No, I'm just kidding. It's just because you mentioned snubbing and coffee, so I just have to bring it in. So me and Raul were talking to Ted about an idea, and we kind of want to gauge interest. We want to do some type of ASG town hall. It's kind of similar to a diversity and inclusion forum, or like even MCC has a town hall. So it's kind of an opportunity for like our constituents to come out and basically ask any questions or address any concerns directly to us, and then later on, and then after like initially moderating like a Q&A panel, they'll go into like small group discussions, just like a diversity and like, I don't know if you guys have been to those, and they'll have like distinct topics that we get a lot, like for example, like RSO funding, and like ASG transparency, and obviously this is like we just started discussing this, so it's like very in the works, but at first we need to like gauge interest to see if people even want to do this, if you guys think it's a good idea, because we would need a lot of people on board, because if there's just like 2 people, then it can't be productive. And Raul, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I guess like the idea is like to have it be like a school-wide event, but like just ASG, like in the past there's been like wings when it's not a good day to be a Bronco, and we don't want it to be like kind of like a collaboration with other organizations. We want it just to be like an internal thing. And this is like so that everyone at the school can essentially raise their concerns with us. And the reason why we want to do this is because a lot of students don't feel comfortable coming one-on-one with us, like during office hours or just in general with like ASG members. Like I've gotten a lot of people that tell me that like they don't feel comfortable coming to Senate or expressing their concerns with like ASG members. So like this would be a good way to like build that, like I guess trust and like communication again. So like the moderated panel would be like with like all of like the exec branch on the front, answering questions about like what each branch does, answering like general questions about like ASG, answering concerns and stuff like that. And then we would break out into like smaller tables, and then like she said, each table would be like a committee, and then each branch would be attached to a committee. So like we were thinking like judicial could be with like bylaws and stuff like that, like talking about like rules and parliamentary procedure and like regulations, like the way ASG operates. PR could like branch with like SEC and like student engagement and things like that. comm dev and like CYC with on-campus and off-campus engagement and like activities and things like that. And then Rso funding with like finance branch because it's kind of like related with like finances and stuff. So this is just kind of like a raw idea that like hasn't really been like fleshed out completely. We want to do it by like the end of winter quarter, but if we need be and like not to rush anything, then to have like a more successful event, then we can do it spring quarter. So we just wanted to like gauge interest to see who's interested so we can get started on like the planning process. And if you guys have questions or comments or ideas, feel free to throw them out.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good idea as far as like what the idea of like legislative body would be in a student government. One of the things I think we need to be careful about when we're like creating the questions in the form is not to be too like ASG info session-y. Like I think it would make sure that we don't stray towards that, which definitely is needed, and so the student body knows what we do, but making sure it's more about the students and how they feel. And I also think it'd be cool to do it right before a Senate meeting so that we could encourage them to watch us in action sort of thing. So that way, it'd also probably make more of us available potentially.
In addition to that, just making sure that it differentiates itself from the diversity forums. We want to make sure that it's not the same thing happening twice per quarter.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a great idea. But echoing his point, like obviously, like hopefully it'd be different. It wouldn't just be diversity topics. But he mentioned that like it'd be like the different committees, and then the different like branches of ASG. I feel like town hall, ideal like when I first think of that, like I feel like kind of not copying but like borrowing from like ISAC in terms of like talking about like specific issues on campus, and it's kind of a way like town hall could be a way for us to kind of be aware of a lot of issues on campus that we currently are not aware of, and it shouldn't be strictly, hey, like what's something that SEC could do, and we don't want to put it on them to think of which committee should I go to address the problem that I have. It should be, hey, I have XYZ problem, who's gonna fix it? And I think town hall could benefit from that type of structure. And in addition, like I think town hall is 100% a great idea. If it were to be a thing, like it should be something that all of us should be like kind of required to go to if possible.
Yeah, like I think we would like ask each committee and branch, like I think for SAC as an example, like what are the frequently asked questions you guys get? I'm pretty sure like many clubs ask, why did I only receive this? Or like what can I do to receive more? And you know, that can be branched with finance on like, oh, why does my reimbursement take 5 weeks? Like I will be in that table as well because I have that same question. So like those are like commonly asked questions will be branched and kind of like listed on the table, so anyone like clubs can come out and sit there and ask those questions, and those are just like sample questions if they don't like have their own questions, so they can at least start with those, and it kind of groups people.
I think it's a really good idea. I think important to have student outreach, so we actually like students again, like Raul, what you were saying, like feel comfortable to come and say that because like we all want to know. So you were also talking about outreach.
Yeah, I think that like it's not like we're not like trying to I guess copy any like previous event that's been done before, or like any sort of like organization that has done this before. It's more just like a lot of students have expressed that it would help build up like transparency and communication. So it's more of like people can literally just come and like express how they feel about certain issues, and we can like change the formatting and work around that. But this is just like the initial idea of like what we, I guess, foresee it being. Yeah.
I want to pitch like an alternative to this kind of. I think this is a great idea, but to address the issue that you brought up, Raul, of the fact that some people are just uncomfortable like coming to Senate, I don't think that this would necessarily address that. So that's why we think maybe that it'd be just as important, if not more, to stress the importance of office hours and tabling in Benson, just so more people are aware of like where they can find us, because like Nicole literally just told us that people not in ASG don't look at our emails or don't look at the information we provide to them. The information still not be getting out, or it still may not be getting out there. So it might be more important to just be visible in Benson at hours that people are there, and like provide an opportunity for people to talk to us and just tell us their grievances, and then we could like delegate them or like tell them to go to the next point of contact.
I think to like answer that briefly, I think that I guess concern is that like students, again, like if we're in like Benson tabling, I don't think that like is necessarily the spot or like the time and place sometimes for people to like express their concerns.
Why not?
And so I think like kind of having this event would like, in the future, like the tabling and office hours could be a good way of like expressing like student concerns. But I think this event could be like a precedent almost to that, and like allow people to feel more comfortable with ASG. It's not like, and like we spoke with Ted, it's not meant to put like anyone on blast. It's not meant to like it's not meant to target anyone. It's not meant to be like a personal attack on anyone. It's just a way of like building that transparency. And I get that like some people might feel like that's what it seems like, but it's not at all. And so like Vidya and I talked about like what are like the implications of having this event, like what could be some potential benefits and like some cons, and like after this initial event we could like kind of like either never do it again or like restructure it and see like what worked, what didn't. So it's just kind of like yeah, again, an initial idea, and like the office hours is great, but like if people already don't feel like they can come up to us, or if we're not approachable, then this would help kind of facilitate that almost.
I also feel like as far as like what the difference between this and office hours would be is that like when you're at office hours, you're probably going to only meet 3 people that doesn't represent all of ASG and doesn't represent what we can do. So having an event that shows, like kind of shows people and gives them confidence, I think whether or not they go might affect their ability to open up to us about issues that they might not think we are able to cover.
What if we also did it in like an more open space, like how you kind of mentioned earlier, if we had Senate outside, like it would encourage more students to go to Senate. So if we held like, what if we also did this like quarterly, or I don't know how often you want to have this event, but it's like we could do it like once a quarter and have it in a, like an area like outside of the library, or I don't know, around Benson or something, and just make it seem like an event where people could just kind of like listen in and see what's going on. And I think it's also cool that students will be able to see like visibly who is on Senate, because I think a big thing too is like a lot of, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how much like people really know like all the senators and like who your first year senators are, like the at-large ones and stuff like that. So I think that's important, because not a lot of friends that I talk to as well don't even know what we do and don't know that they could come to us and tell us what's going on. So I think it's great.
That's why it's really important that we have a full strength. So if only a few people are interested, it won't work out.
So Vidya and Ro, like, do you guys want this to be what it seems like you're saying, like about dialogue, just having like a good conversation about like any concerns or ideas or issues like that students have? Is that like what you're saying? Basically?
Yeah, and I guess like part of that would like require like all of it, if not all of us, but most of us to be present. And like again, we can't force anyone to be there because it's not like in your job description, or it's not like part of like a bylaw that says like you need to be in attendance. But it would be great to see like the majority of us there. So like if there was a joint effort, like there's a planned collaboration, it would be nice to have everyone there, because I may be able to answer some questions about like a specific topic, but then I can't answer everything. Like I can't answer what is, like I could probably answer like my first year experience, but we don't want to talk about that. You'd probably want to hear from the first year senators. So like it's just like every like person has a different perspective or a different like outlook or a different job description or a different like position. So it's nice to have a lot of people there to be able to like answer different types of questions, and also just like again get to know who your constituents are if you don't already know them, and then for them to actually know who you are, because again that's part of like the office hour thing. Like if they don't know who you are, you're just in Benson, they're not going to come up to you because they don't feel comfortable talking to you yet.
Yeah, I think like one thing that like I just thought of, like along with whoever wants to come, I think a lot of things we've talked about is like transparency and like connecting, being on the same page with other like CSOs and other main like organizations, student organizations around campus. So it could be kind of cool to have something where like every other CSO or main thing around student life that like we consider, like we think is like a main part of student life in Santa Clara, like have a few people representing each part. And so like we can all come together as like basically leaders of like student-wise leaders of Santa Clara, and like talk about like what are the main things we want to work on and address for a culture on campus.
Yeah, I think that seems like a good, maybe potentially different event. I think that's
something.
For lack of better terms, you kind of just described wings. So,
described what?
Wings. So wings was is like when it's not a great day. When it's not a great day to be a Bronco, it's not exactly wings, but whatever. That's what they called it before.
Like, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's like, that seems like specifically negative.
Yeah,
to
it
the-
does.
Yes,
I agree.
Exactly. So
This could be like positive.
Yeah, and this isn't like just general grievances about the school. This is like ASG and like what we do, which is why we don't want to collaborate with other CSOs for this event, because we can't solve every grievance in the school, but we can at least solve the ones that are, you know, that we do.
So we're gonna end that discussion on that. Hold on. We've sorry. Multiple people have spoken multiple times. Nick has a presentation for us on the AFC budget.
How quick?
Can you do it in 5 minutes?
Budget? Yeah.
It's gonna be quick. Don't keep me up because he didn't give it to me in the agenda and it's 2 slides he's putting in.
We have no money.
Dirty, rotten.
All right, that's just. Wait, say it louder. Say it louder. Scream it.
Yeah, motion.
Hey guys, pay attention.
This is the report through December. Does not include January. That comes out halfway through February. The top one includes stipends, which we don't have a choice about how we spend. Bottom row is what we can spend. We spend less than a third, which is good. Last year they spent more than they should have. They did reserves, so we're trying to build those up this year. So we're on track for that. And yeah. Any questions?
Does this include RSO funding?
No, this is our CSO funding.
Got it.
Can you say that we're on track for this year?
Yes.
Just checking.
All right. Will there be a follow-up report on RSO funding?
Yes.
Oh,
Hey, wait.
Oh, that's fun.
Was I guess the ASG budget, did it go up or down from last year?
I think it stayed the same.
Oh, okay. Stayed the same, yeah.
Are you gonna do the same thing that you did to seniors last year when you took away the like glass house thing?
I didn't do that.
Abby?
Can you just explain what all this goes to? Like, what is in the operating budget?
That's everything that we spend money on that isn't stipends. So,
What are some of the big things?
retreats, those nameplates for like $1,000.
Oh, really?
Apparel, transportation, food, dinners, any events. So like any community events you guys put on that cost money comes out of the operating budget.
Cool. All right. That's it for Nick. Thank you. Motion second. Allie, second from Mika. All in favor of adjourning? Aye. All opposed? We're adjourned.
We have polos.
Oh yeah, we have polos. That's something for roundtable remarks.
You're announcing.
Get your
Now you gotta order more. You gotta order more sweaters and polos now, though.
Yes, the right to once again, defeated by the Hey man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. This is perfect.
I 100% got that one wrong, but I got that right. I was like I looked at all 3 of those words and I was like, I don't know which one it is, and I was like, I think.